I would reaffirm very importantly the basic principles for establishing national human rights commissions as part of the global network of national institutions, and that is the importance of the Paris principles concerning national institutions, particularly the two components which are extremely pertinent. The component of the need for independent commissions and commissioners, particularly independent from the executive branch, which has to be monitored. And secondly, the need for pluralism in composition. And these are two very important components which guide our assessment of the national commissions in all regions of the world, including Thailand. Secondly, it is true, as has been said, that the International Coordination Committee of the human rights institutions has downgraded the Thailand National Human Rights Commission to grade B from grade A. Grade A would mean following the past principles, as I adverted to recently, whereas grade B is not fulfilling the Paris principles fully. In other words, ambivalent situation. So that's the classification now, which I recognize. And the basic question behind that is, why has it been downgraded? If we look at the reasoning of the ICC, the International Coordination Committee, they were particularly concerned with the fact that the selection process of the commissioners of the Thailand National Human Rights Commission, the selection process was not independent enough, impliedly not pluralistic enough, particularly because of lack of involvement of civil society and NGOs in the selection process. So that is point 2 to be borne in mind. Point 3 is to go back to look at how we established the Commission in Thailand and how we did pretty well initially, and then we sort of vacillated later on, and this has to be looked to in terms of needed improvement. So point 3 is to look at how it was established originally, which was well done. The Commission in Thailand was established by the 1997 Constitution of Thailand, the 16th constitution that I referred to yesterday, the most people-based constitution. And it was followed by the 1999 National Human Rights Commission law, specific law, adding content to the details concerning the Commission. And those two elements, those two instruments, established a selection committee of some 27 persons to select 22 names, from whom would be ultimately selected 11 commissioners for the first Thailand National Human Rights Commission. The 27-member committee, selection committee, was composed of about half civil society members, whereas the other half came from government and so on. So it's pretty pluralistic and independent because of that process. And that's how the first Thailand National Human Rights Commission was established in 1997 plus, through a broad selection process, independent and pluralistic, and lauded accordingly. Fourth, regrettably, I think, what happened later was some vacillation. In 2007, the 18th Constitution of Thailand was adopted, and that Constitution narrowed the selection process, narrowed the selection committee. So from 27 members, half of whom were civil society, roughly, the selection committee was then reduced to 7 members only, none of whom was a representative of civil society. The 7 members of the 2007 Constitution were as follows: 3 from the judiciary, 2 from politicians, and 2 chosen by the judiciary, none of whom were really civil society. So that's the catch, and that is the area needing improvement. And together with that, of course, we realized also that the functioning of the Commission can be strengthened, particularly in terms of expeditious reporting as well as access generally to people. So that is the scenario that we have to work with now. So what next? The final point is this. The national constitution that is now being evolved, which will be the 20th constitution that you asked about yesterday, has key provisions to try to improve for the following reasons. The draft constitution that appeared this week, that I referred to yesterday, has specific provisions, particularly from section 246 onwards. Section 246 onwards of the current draft, which is ad referendum, will go to referendum on August the 7th, deals specifically with this issue as follows. Section 246 of the new draft constitution says that the qualifications, the details concerning the commissioners will have to be worked out with an organic law that will come into being after the constitution. In other words, there has to be a statute of parliament that comes into play after the constitution is adopted. And as part of that process, Section 246 states specifically that there has to be representation from civil society in the selection process. In other words, there is advocacy of civil society participation in the next phase of the selection process, and that is where we are today. So I would summarize as follows, that the next steps to improve ourselves transparently and openly is as follows. Number one, we will need to work towards an improved law pursuant to a constitution that integrates the civil society participation directly into the selection process so that civil society will have a good say in selecting the candidates to become the commissioners ultimately. And the number at the moment is ultimately 7 commissioners rather than 11 commissioners as in 1997 plus. Secondly, the importance of opening up to civil society as a whole in terms of the work of the Commission. And I've been a friend of the Commission for many years, and I know particularly the commissioners who are here together, the one commissioner who is here actually, together with various members of the Secretariat. I know that they're very open to engage with civil society, and that is welcome. And thirdly, I was actually with the commissioners 2 weeks ago, helping them. I helped them pro bono. And we had a good discussion about accessibility. And it is welcome that the Commission, the new Human Rights Commission, will try to be more accessible, particularly to rural areas and provincial areas, by establishing branches in the provinces, working with universities, particularly to access rural people and marginalized groups throughout the whole country, rather than being centralized in Bangkok. So I hope that's a message that will be resonant in terms of pluralism, independence, as well as accessibility, which is very complementary to the spirit of the CRPD as a whole. Thank you.
Ms. Sarongkwan, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Let me explain about the political participation of persons with disabilities. But before that, let me add to Professor Vichit with regards to the support of the National Human Rights Commission in light of the draft grading by the ICC. We, as the Foreign Minister, also convey the comments and concerns of the ICC to the highest possible, including the Prime Minister, the Cabinet, and as well as the Constitution Drafting Committee already. And back to the issue of political participation. In the past, accommodation had been provided for persons with disabilities in elections already, such as access for voters with wheelchair. Complications occur for voters with visual disabilities, where election commission staff was allowed to assist with the vote, raising the question on confidentiality as the committee raised the concern. Nevertheless, in light of the upcoming referendum to be held this August, the National Legislative Assembly is now in the discussion regarding the Act on Referendum Procedures. The issue that has been discussed just early this month, including the issues about the accommodation to be provided for persons with disabilities who are eligible voters, including the possibility of using electronic voting machine as an option to facilitate persons with visual disabilities. Also, they are considering about having producing the braille voting ballots as another option. They also consider about to make the voting booth designed specially to accommodate persons with disabilities. Also, if other types of accommodation is needed by persons with disabilities, the draft law also allow them to make a request in advance so that the election commission can provide accordingly. Regarding the political campaign, on state-supported TV like Channel 11, sign interpreter has already been included in all TV programs, including debates and policy campaign of any candidates. But for political rallies, that's up to the political parties whether they would provide such sign interpreter or not. Thank you.
Thank you. The second question concerning the Ministry of Labour on the sexual exploitation of women and girls. May I invite Mrs. Aruni from the Ministry of Labour, please?
Thank you very much. Concerning the sexual exploitation of boys and girls with disabilities, there are several laws and policies and mechanisms to protect their lives, and also the progress. Like last year, we have the amendment of the law. But first, let me introduce that Thailand became the party of the United Nations Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime and its protocol to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in persons, especially women and children, in October 2013. And at the national level, we have the Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act 2008. In Section 4, it defines the definition of the exploitation to include sexual exploitation, forced labor, slavery, forced removal of organs for the purpose of trade, and forced breaking. All victims of such violations, including persons with disabilities, are therefore protected under the law and entitled to remedies, while perpetrator will be punished. And last year, in April 2015, the Prime Minister declared prevention and suppression of trafficking in persons as a national agenda and instructed our agencies to seriously combat trafficking rings and prosecute those conspiring, including government officials. And there's a progress in the amendment of the criminal code to criminalize child pornography, which became effective in December last year. The law aims at providing more protection for our children, including boys and girls with disabilities, from a wider range of sexual exploitation, which includes those that came in the forms of visual representation using advanced technology and the distribution of child pornography on the internet. So this is the progress in the protection of the rights of boys and girls with disability from being exploited, especially the sexually exploitation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aruni, disability expert. May I turn to Mrs. Churi Lat from Ministry of Labour on the employment, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Permanent Secretary, Madam Chair, and Committee. May I qualify the issue of discrimination and equality of persons with disability in the workplace as per the question from Mr. Langwat. I thank you very much for your question. Firstly, when persons with disabilities are employed, they receive exactly the same labor rights as others who are employed. For example, the labor protection, the right to freedom of association, the right to be trained and skill development. Secondly, with regard to the government sector, compared to private companies, the quota system was introduced to the government sector at a later stage than in private sectors. There is still no plan to enforce measures on government agencies similar to ones on private companies, particularly sanctions of fee or missing position. Nevertheless, the Cabinet adopted a resolution on 27 October 2015 instructing all government agencies to strictly follow the regulation and work to meet the set ratio by the year 2018. The Ministry of Labour and Ministry of Social Development and Human Security have continuously worked to raise awareness of the regulation among government agencies and private companies in order to increase the rate of employment of persons with disability. Nevertheless, one outstanding challenge that hinders the efforts of both private companies and government offices is unmatched skill and insufficient supply of workers with disability. This is probably due to many other obstacles persons with disabilities still face, such as level of education, health condition, and accessibility to public transportation. More work needs to be done with respect to skill development and flexible work conditions to promote more persons with disabilities job opportunities in both government and private sector. Relevant agencies, including Ministry of Social Development and Human Security, the Ministry of Labour, the Ministry of Education, have therefore tried to provide more robust job training in order to build capacity and develop necessary skills for work for persons with disability. In addition, there are also measures to promote attendance in vocational schools for students with disabilities in order to prepare them for future employment. Early on this month, the National Committee approved the Manpower Plan for 2017 to 2020 to increase the position of government staff who will work as headhunters for persons with disabilities in all 77 provincial labor offices throughout the country. This will contribute to the efforts to help persons with disabilities in finding appropriate jobs. Furthermore, the government in November last year facilitated the placement of persons with disability to government jobs by improving the suitability of the criteria for persons with disability for employment in this sector. Importantly, I would like to inform to you that recognizing the potentials and values of persons with disability, which can benefit not only themselves and their families, but also the national economy and society. The government, through the Ministry of Labour, identify employment for persons with disability as a high agenda, announcing the project the year 2016, the year of employment of persons with disability. In order for the person with disabilities to be employed, have occupations and secure incomes, as well as self-reliance and social integration. The data of persons with disabilities nationwide will be surveyed for the matching of labor demand and supply. The target of new employment, both in private and public sectors, for them must be not less than 10,000 persons within this year. The government will increase the accessibility of vocational rehabilitation and employment services for persons with disability in rural areas and remote communities. The government has also helped locate persons with disabilities who live in the remote area to secure employment in their communities so that they won't need to travel far to their work and can stay with their families. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we turn to Ministry of Education from Mr. Samad to answer about the educational.
So I will talk about the inclusive education in Thailand. During the past decade, the government has implemented a significant move to ensure children with disability can access to mainstream education. To ensure that the culture and educational system barriers to overcome and policy has been brought into practice. Consequently, last year in 2015, it's allowed 424,000 students with disability have been enrolled in all-level education from early childhood to higher education. So this is starting of the journey toward the full inclusive education in Thailand. But we found some problem like your questions that I mentioned about our problem in the educational system, like a lack of teacher, lack of the skill and knowledge to provide a better education in inclusive education. So the Ministry of Education Standing Commission to promote education for persons with disability with the chair by the Minister of Education and the Deputy Minister of Interior as the first vice chair, also included the representative of the Organization of Persons with Disability who acts as the vice chair. They aim to help guarantee the right to education for an education program that responds to the needs of persons with disability. So in 2012, the Ministry of Education launched the strategic education strategic plan 2012-2016 to drive a policy and overcome barrier to access to education for students with disability. Since the launch of the plan, more children with disability enroll in early education to higher education that I mentioned before. The MOE has allocated government budget and fund worth $1.27 million to in inclusive education. And and we also do over 28,000 teachers have been trained by MOE on the important skills needed for early identification and early intervention services for infant toddler with disability as well as overall skill needed in inclusive classroom setting. The standards concept of the special the student for the overcome of the capacity of teacher capacity building, we work with the university to provide a special course so the student in the pre-service students who become teacher later must take the fundamental course on the inclusive education before they can practice their post-professional teaching career. Overall, over $1 million has been allocated to special needs education in fiscal year 2015. The MOE has allowed a fund of $5.8 in 2016 to educational district to support student support service units or SSS unit for providing the services aim to assist students with disability enroll in the educational system and teacher. For instance, providing accessible learning material, capacity building on the know-how in teaching students with disability. This government allocate another $7.1 million to the Bureau of Special Education during the fiscal year to support inclusive education setting. The government budget allocation for the education for students with disability in inclusive education are paid per head in the same rate. Our problem is we pay per head in the same rate as the typical student. But students with disability in the special need education school are paid per head in higher rate. For instance, $126 per head per year for students in the inclusive education and $330 per head per year for students with disability in special education at the primary level. This is our another challenge that we have to work on that. This may have posed some challenge in the promotion and expansion of inclusive education in Thailand, as most schools simply rely on the Bureau of Special Education budget support. The need there needs to be more sense of ownership from the school management side to invest and be creative about the designing and putting in place quality inclusive education program for students with disability. So overall challenges, Thailand also faces significant challenge in achieving true inclusive education for persons with disability. This is due to insufficient early intervention, inadequate resources and personal shortage of the assistive equipment at school, and the lack of high flexible education system that tailor to specific needs of students with disability. This pose even greater. So all the suggestions are welcome for our country to help our educational system go toward full inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. May I now invite Dr. Dharani and Dr. Buskon, representative from the Ministry of Public Health, to speak on the health-related issues. Please.
I would like to talk about the private insurance in healthcare system. By the data from the National Health Security Office, 99% of the persons with disabilities have been covered by three main government schemes. They are the labor, social security, civil servant health scheme, and the universal health care coverage. However, the person with disabilities can buy the private insurance to add on. Now the private insurance have offer some special options such as about the medical rehabilitation service for the people with disability. Thank you.
Madam Chair, committees and distinguished guests, one committee mentions about a judge can also impose their decision to force sterilization or justice for sterilization. We can guarantee there is no such case, and Ministry of Public Health promote various campaigns to control sexually transmitted disease or HIV infection for all citizens, include persons with disability. And it is our challenges in enhancing issues of disability preventions, especially from the major causes such as chronic illness, trauma, incidents, violence, and others. And these issues need the effective procedure and information integration from our related agencies, both government organization and non-government organization, and we try to adopt these concepts. And about the serious issue about the privacy issue in psychiatric hospital and mechanism of sexual violence protection in principles, all health staff and hospital in Thailand must deliver medical services and provide treatment with full respect for the patient's autonomy. Nevertheless, there are scenarios where some patients with psychosocial disability show immediate or significant possibility of serious harm to themselves or others. In such case, we should consider a privacy issue and the patient safety issue simultaneously. So we try to enhance our protective mechanisms. And about the CBR, or community-based rehabilitation. About the CBR projects in Thailand started among government agencies related to public health and social, which using concepts, procedures, and equipments in rural area. These methodologies apply the supporting independent living for persons with disability in the community. CBR would also involve the community to be part of supporting independent living for persons with disability. After the success of the pilot projects, CBR has been expanded to network throughout the country. Some networks would constructively start with building capacity for medical personnel to prevent and enhance good health, collaborations among stakeholders, local authorities, community leaders and civil society organizations in the area of education, livelihood, and empowerment are aware of the importance and beneficial of developing CBR. All stakeholders would then work together to brainstorm, design, and decide local sustainability in the community. CBR has expanded from the health aspect to education and vocational to raise the income and sustainability in social. CBR is one of the treatment of persons with disability, especially for psychosocial disability and psychiatric patients provided by the government. From 2012 to 2014, more than 3,000 patients with psychosocial disability have joined the CBR programs, and we try to enhance these projects throughout our country. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. May I invite Ms. Geneva from Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disability on accessibility to cultural site. Ms. Geneva, please.
Thank you so much. So for accessibility to cultural site, Thailand realized the importance of participation, cultural life, recreation, and leisure, and of course independent life of persons with disability. Therefore, for accessibility to cultural site, I would like to rate the example of a pilot project on accessible tourism in Gokret community with very popular tourism in Thailand. So it is located in Nonthaburi province, and this accessible Gokret community was initiated by Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disability and the Ministry of Culture, Tourism, Transportation, and local authority. And they try to enhance the friendly pier for wheelchair users to take a boat to Gokret community. And moreover, Ministry of Culture also promote information access of persons with disability through mass media such as sign language interpreters for news TV program, and they also promote 22 religious places to be accessible for persons with all types of disability, and they also initiate art for all program for equal access to arts of the underprivileged group of children, including children with disability. And for the future direction, I would like to share that these pilot projects are generated throughout the country in line with the related law on accessibility and the concept of universal design for all. Thank you.
Thank you. The question number 7 on disability allowance. Criteria for selection of disability experts. May I invite Ms. Vichitra to give a floor, please.
Thank you very much. On the monthly disability allowance, the government policy to provide the monthly disability allowance at the rate of $27 has the objective to be an additional subsidy for persons with disability. The intention is not for it to be the only source of income for persons with disability. Therefore, it could be misleading to compare the rate of the monthly disability allowance with that of a minimum wage, which is at $10 per day. In addition, the allowance should not be raised to the level that it is so high that it becomes a disincentive to work for a person with disability, especially those who have potential with ability to live and work independently. On the data on persons with disability, we are planning to conduct a disability survey in 2017. The National Strategic Office or NSO, together with the Department of Employment of Persons with Disability, have engaged with all 7 disability people organizations in the preparation for the survey for 2017, so that the shortcoming from the past survey in 2012 can be addressed. Data collection will be done by sampling and include face-to-face interview with persons with disability. The new disability survey will be done in time with the Washington Group on Disability Strategic, taking into considering of the obligation under the CRPD and commitment to implement the insurance strategy to make the right real for persons with disability in Asia and the Pacific, and with a view to realize the Sustainable Development Goal target. The new set of data will be disaggregated and will be available in the format that are accessible to persons with disability. On the National Committee regarding the appointment of disability expert in the National Committee, this is done through nominate by the concerned agency. The criteria of selecting a nominate person therefore vary and are up to the discretion of the concerned agency. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next go to Ms. Patramon on the international cooperation. Please.
Thank you. On international cooperation, the government of Thailand has supported persons with disabilities to participate in sub-regional, regional, and international meetings. We regularly have persons with disabilities in our delegations to the meeting under the insurance strategies. In 2016, Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities has allocated $700,000 or around 12% of the department's total budget to support international cooperation in the field of disability. This included the sponsorships for persons with disability to attend the meetings. On APEC, Thailand is a member of the Group of Friends of the Disabilities. We attach great importance to mainstreaming persons with disabilities in the economy, especially to locate employment for persons with disability to provide sustainable source income. Thank you.
Thank you. But the last but not least, Director General Somchai on the remaining issues related to the work of his Department of Empowerment on Persons with Disability. May by the Director General Somchai, please.
Madam Chair and member of committee, I mentioned a bit yesterday that in principle, the National Committee on the Empowerment of Persons with Disability and government see the merits of the proposal of Disability Thailand, which include first, transformation of the management of the fund for the empowerment of persons with disability to be legal entity. Second, upgrading the subcommittee on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against persons with disability to be a committee. Third, deletion of paragraph 3 of section 15 related to discriminatory action allowed on a case-by-case basis. Fourth, specifying ratio of women with disability in the National Committee. And lastly, fifth, amendment of section number 37. I'd like to give you an information that this existing act was recently amended in 2013. But the Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disability is in the process to propose for the National Committee on the Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities to appoint the subcommittee on disability legislation with the mandate to consider the need and detail of the proposed amendments to the Act. We will therefore wait for the recruit for this subcommittee. For the TTRS, one of the committee members mentioned is the scheme that got financial support from the fund, so the plan to expand such service can also seek support from this fund also. And my head of delegation also mentioned yesterday that the National Committee has expressed its keen interest in becoming a party to the Marrakesh Treaty. This treaty is rather new and will require preparation with respect amendment of domestic legislation. But we see it was a very useful instrument that will help further facilitate access to information and knowledge for persons with visual disabilities in Thailand. So we are in the process of preparing for the Cabinet to approve the amendment of intellectual property law, so to allow us to accede to the treaty. Hopefully we can be part of the countries that will make this treaty becoming effective soon. This is a part of our effort to extend our wider support to persons with visual disabilities. One question on social security card and how we provide health service to people with disability as part of the welfare and different scheme of health care when people with disabilities start working. I would like to respond in Thai because it have a lot of detail. So you will, the interpreter will translate in English for you.
Regarding, in our government, we encourage persons with disabilities to get into the employment in order to live in the society, in a mainstream society as equal. However, when they reach into the employment situation, they have to enter into the insurance, social insurance, which is persons with disabilities will have more rights, more benefits. For example, once they stop working or however, when they gain more benefits, they will lose some others, such as in the hospital, because of if you are persons with disabilities and not working, you will have such a card which is called the universal healthcare coverage. Once you enter into the social insurance, you have to go to the hospital, which is specified already, and have to put some money towards the fund. However, other benefits, which is according to the person with disabilities, you will still gain it. By my department, together with other organizations, including private and government agencies, as well as the national legislative bodies, are not actually ignore that matters or issues. We are trying to solve the problems to ensure the rights of persons with disabilities in the healthcare situation. Their rights will not lose when they enter into the employment. At the moment, the insurance, the social insurance and the healthcare insurance department and other agencies have agreed upon in which persons with disabilities will still have the rights in healthcare system and the health and the social insurance benefits as well. but these have to be put forward into the cabinet. And we hope that all the benefits that we will put into the cabinet will be approved very soon. And all the details that I mentioned regarding the healthcare system for persons with disabilities will still there, as well as encourage persons with disabilities to enter into the employment situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Director General and Ms. Interpreter. Lastly, may I give an opportunity to the representative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ms. Jitvipa. She would like to add more on the international cooperation, please.
Thank you. I would also like to add a bit more on our development assistance program. Development cooperation is considered as one of the key tools in Thailand foreign policy. We have continuously provided assistance and share our experience as well as best practices with our neighboring countries as well as fellow developing countries. Several projects and training courses under our development cooperation programs are related to persons with disabilities. For example, the Ministry of Public Health, through the support from the Thailand International Cooperation Agencies, or TICA, has organized trainings on nursing rehabilitation, such as practical swallowing rehabilitation, wheelchair training on prosthetic and orthotics, and advanced physical therapy for agencies from ASEAN countries and China. On other assistance, apart from TICA's program, several government agencies also provide training courses to their counterparts in ASEAN countries and or those outside the region. The Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities has signed the MOUs on cooperation on disability issues with its counterparts from neighboring countries, namely Cambodia, Laos PDR, Myanmar, and Vietnam. The cooperation also includes exchange of best practices, the study trips for government officers to learn from each other. As a party to Anti-Personal Mind Ban Convention, Thailand has played an active role in assisting our neighboring countries on the victim assistance, particularly on the production of the prosthetics and rehabilitation. The National Institute for Emergency Medicine under the Ministry of Public Health, in partnership with civil society such as the Prosthetics Foundation, has arranged a mobile unit to provide this service to victims, to train relevant personnel on its production, as well as to provide emergency health treatment service in neighboring countries, namely Myanmar, Laos PDR, and Cambodia. In a bigger picture, our TICA's development cooperation to improve public health system in the neighboring countries also enable hospitals in those countries to improve their assistance to landmine victims in their respective countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tripa, to make it complete. Yes. Now, Mr. Chair, I think my delegate has tried our best to provide answer to all of the questions in cluster 3. Thank you. Thank you for the committee. Yes.
I'd like to thank the head of the delegation. We are now going to give the floor to the National Human Rights Commission to make their final statement.
Dear Madam Chair, for the National Human Rights Commission of Thailand participating in the dialogue between the Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, Thai DPOs, Thai civil societies, and Thai delegation has been a very useful experience. It has helped create a better understanding of the principles and provisions of the Convention and how they are applied when it comes to real situation on the ground. Having listened to the discussion during these 2 days. I have learned a great deal about how the rights guaranteed in the Convention can be translated into practices for persons with disabilities. This will certainly help the National Human Rights Commission of Thailand to discharge its mandate in monitoring the implementation of the Convention in a more effective manner. On behalf of the National Human Rights Commission of Thailand, I would like to address some of the key challenges taking note from the review of Thailand's initial report at this time, with ensuring that we, as the National Human Rights Commission of Thailand, in collaboration with the Thai DPOs and Thai civil society, would vigorously spend effort to following up and making the rights real for persons with disabilities as first, the amendment of Persons with Disabilities Empowerment Act of 2007 with more stringent and broadened definition on persons with disabilities. Second, the securing and supervision of the time frame for making intersectional rights become more concrete with wide coverage to all persons with disabilities and those unrestricted. Third, the harmonization of laws, provisions, and regulations in compliance with the CRPD. Fourth, the encouragement of meaningful participation of DPOs and persons with disabilities themselves with more or less taken part in decision-making process of the National Committee and relevant subcommittees. And 5, the elimination of stigmatization for both inside and outside persons with disabilities and of discrimination with more upgrading for mindsets of relevant authorities, particularly those in charge of making the rights real for persons with disabilities, with mainstreaming of the social inclusiveness and wide undertaking of human rights-based approach. As the independent monitoring mechanism under Article 33.2 of the Convention, the National Human Rights Commission Thailand is committed to following up on how the committee's recommendations are carried out. It will work with both concerned government agencies, organizations of and for persons with disabilities, and other stakeholders toward that end. And we hope to report substantive progress to the committee next time it examines the country report from Thailand. I would like to conclude my remark by expressing our thanks once again to the Committee on the Rights of the Person with Disabilities for this unique opportunity for the National Human Rights Commission of Thailand to take part in this dialogue. We hope the information we have provided to the committee is useful for its examination of Thailand report, and we hope to be able to contribute the work of the committee again in the future. Last but not least, I would also like to urge the Thai government to firmly comply with the international human rights standard with an open mind to cooperate with all stakeholders ready to support the implementation of concluding observations further given by the CRPD committee. The National Human Rights Commission Thailand will stand firm to play a key role in facilitating dialogue and foster cooperation between the government and the Thai DPOs and Thai civil societies, which represent an inclusive constituency and all human rights issues, with ensuring a meaningful engagement of DPOs and relevant communities in Thailand. Altogether, we can continually strengthen network of people working closely with key stakeholders from all sectors with the aim to achieve the ultimate goal of improving the livelihood of Thai people, particularly to those most marginalized in society with intersectional vulnerability, particularly the persons with disabilities. I thank you, Madam Chair.
Muchas gracias a la de Derechos Humanos de Tailandia. Agradecemos los aportes que ha efectuado a este comité, muy ilustrativo. Damos la palabra al jefe de la delegación del Estado parte para hacer su declaración final.
I would now like to give the floor to the head of the State Party delegation for his concluding remarks.
Madam Chair, distinguished member of the committee, on behalf of my delegation, I would like to thank all members of the committee for your questions and guidance. With such a limited time to answer a wide range of questions, our delegation has tried to provide you with as much information as we can. We have certainly learned a lot. We will be taking back home all these valuable inputs to further improve our implementation of the Convention and to promote and to protect the rights of persons with disabilities. We recognize that there are many challenges ahead, but we will try our best. Among the issues that we will focus on are 6 points as follows. First, awareness building and removing social barriers. Second, enhancing accessibility in all aspects. Third, integration of work among allied agencies and in partnership with DPOs. Fourth, enhance capacity on data collection. Fifth, addressing multiple discrimination and realizing sustainable development goals. And lastly, reforming laws, regulations, and measures to be in conformity with the spirit of Convention. Of course, this list is not exhaustive. We are looking forward to hearing the committee's concluding observations. We will submit the results of our dialogue together with the concluding observations to the Cabinet so that this issue be brought to the attention of the highest political levels. Lastly, I would like to express on behalf of my delegation our appreciation to you, Madam Chair, Mr. Kim, our rapporteur, and all committee members. Before ending, I would like to stress you, Madam Chair, on the committee members that we will not just talk about this, but we will walk the talk. We will take concrete actions. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Muchas gracias al
My sincere thanks to the head of the State Party delegation. I would now like to give the floor to the country rapporteur, our dear member of the committee, Mr. Hyung-Sik Kim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm delighted to come back for the last time. I would like to thank the delegation and the members of the committee for undertaking a very productive and cordial dialogue during the past 2 sessions. Permanent Secretary Mr. Maitri Inchosud, Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Social Development and Human Security, deserves our thanks for steering the sessions with very useful outcomes. Thanks also due to the members of the delegation for your endeavor to reply to every question put to you. I think the committee members have participated in the dialogue with the State Party by ensuring that we shall share the common vision and commitment to the Convention. You have given the committee a number of undertakings, such as possibility of restructuring the National Committee on Persons with Disability Empowerment Act and the new Constitution, and also to have a closer look at the Committee on Elimination of Discrimination, and also pledging to open up places for women with disabilities for some committees. I know plans are in place for improving accessibility, and you had given us fairly good round of information on how disability fund is being used. But somehow there are some concerns remaining on the part of DPOs. I think it would be useful to make sure that more persons from DPOs would participate in running and making decisions about the fund while you're doing such a good job. You also commented on your commitment to signing or ratifying the Marrakesh Treaty, and also you are ready to improve the issuing of a disability card. Although you haven't mentioned anything about how you're going to do with the optional protocol, I just hope that you will be able to ratify soon. Oh, you ratified it, haven't you? You did, I'm sorry, yeah. That was very strong in your mind. And I feel more should have been discussed on the issue of monitoring the implementation. Despite some expression of concerns around a number of areas, I'd like to think that dialogue with the Thai delegation has been very open, honest, productive in terms of charting the future for actions. I'm pleased to stress that State Party has initiated its willingness to revise certain aspects of the law, such as Section 15 of the PDA Act, Paragraph 3. I really welcome your open approach to that one. In closing, as a rapporteur, I'd like to request the head of the delegation to let the committee have written replies or supplementary comments for the questions you considered sufficiently covered in your dialogue. Some issues raised are critical, and hence committee members would have expected more pointed focused replies. What I'm saying is that if you feel your answers were not sufficient, you still have a chance to come back to us with written replies. And also, in the spirit of convention and reconciliation, I repeat this again, in the spirit of convention and reconciliation, I'd like to comment on the apologies offered by the Permanent Secretary. I'll tell you, as a young person, as a boy, I was brought up with hooks in my left hand, like Captain Cook. I used to be very sensitive, my disability, sometimes even aggressive, so that I can understand the sensitivities of the women with disabilities, or any person with disabilities. I just want the Permanent Secretary to understand that this is the hurt that we are living with all the time. So I hope that Secretary would understand this one, and I thought he was encouraging his junior staff to do well in the session. Nothing more than that, really. But as you said, there must have been some misunderstanding. I sincerely hope that there will be mutual understanding about the differences and return home with renewed commitment, since DPOs and Office of the Secretary will have to work together in the future. I wish you a good journey home. Thank you.
Muchas gracias al relator.
My sincere thanks to the country rapporteur, Mr. Hyung-Sik Kim. My thanks for your excellent work and your marvellous concluding remarks. This brings us to the end of this interactive dialogue. I would like to extend my thanks to the head of delegation and the ambassador of the permanent mission in Geneva. I would like to thank all the members of the committee, the members of the public here, and those who have been following us over the internet. For this committee, it's always extremely important that persons with disabilities in the State Party being reviewed can closely follow this interactive dialogue. On this occasion, the country with such beautiful temples has been reviewed, and we're very pleased that persons with disabilities have been able to follow us. We wish you a safe journey home and our greetings to your families and loved ones. Sawitika, this dialogue has been concluded. I would like to ask the members of the committee to remain in the room whilst the State Party delegation leaves us. Thank you.